With new advancements in technology and the media constantly expanding, it's important to recognize the accuracy of knowledge when looking at different events that are portrayed through the media. So we wanted to learn more about different perspectives. So our knowledge question is, how do differing values placed on perspectives affect our exposure to knowledge?
So a real-life situation in regards to this knowledge question were the ISIS attacks in France and in Libya and Lebanon. And these attacks both happened in November around the same time frame. However, there was a lot of anger about the media due to the fact that the perspectives placed in the Paris attacks had value to make it seem like the Paris attacks were more important than the attacks in Libya and in Lebanon. So these attacks happened around November 13th to the 18th, right in that same week as each other. And this began with the attacks in Lebanon, which happened on November 15th, 2015, and killed approximately 45 people when two suicide bombers decided to bomb the city of Beirut in Lebanon. And there was not much media coverage on this attack, which made it seem like the attacks weren't that important when they were paled in comparison to the Paris attacks that happened in November as well, when at least 128 people, now it is approximated that there were about 135 people, died in the attacks that happened on November 13th, 2015, when about 5 to 7 suicide bombers attacked a wide range of the northern half of Paris, France, and not only were about 128 people killed, there were also about 370 people that were wounded in these attacks. And during the Paris attacks, there was full coverage from CNN and a lot of different news outlets on what was going on, many updates, the different death tolls as they changed. Well, this never happened during the Lebanon or the Libya attacks. So because the Paris attacks had so much coverage, the value that was placed in the media made it seem like they were much more important than the attacks that happened in Lebanon. And because of this, it is the information that was provided or the knowledge that was provided could skew one's full understanding of what was really going on.
So perspectives there's a large amount of importance in perspectives due to the fact that perspectives are the way that we are able to understand something and the way that people have shared knowledge, so we learn through different people's perspectives due to the fact that not everyone is always like at the scene of something, so we get perspectives from different people and different places all over the world. And so knowledge gained through a group of people. And it's shared knowledge is family groups, religious groups, and just groups sharing together. So this has to do with the news, how different people in different religions had a big effect on why the ISIS attacks were such like a large deal. And then shared knowledge is through the media. And the perspectives of different people through shared knowledge is very important because you get the idea of what it was like to be there, but the fact that you aren't seeing it from your own perspectives leads you to, you have to be able to kind of believe what they're saying and you take in their knowledge of what they think is going on.
So language is another way of knowing that we discussed while researching our knowledge question, and we came to the conclusion that language played an extreme role in the communication of knowledge due to the fact that if an author or a broadcaster states something a certain way, it could make the viewer or the reader understand things differently or interpret things differently. And language does not just describe the situation, but it actually structures the situation. So because language, when discussing terrorist groups, rarely to ever mention the fact that the ISIS groups or the Al-Qaeda groups or different Muslim extremist groups are just a tiny fraction of the Muslim or the Islam religions, it is very easy for the readers who do not practice that religion to hate the religion as a whole due to the fact that they are not understanding that the Muslim religion is actually a peaceful religion, and a lot of people that live in the Middle East practice the religion quite peacefully. There is just that one small fraction of the extremists that is broadcasted on. So because of the fact that the value of the perspective of the extremist is placed on them rather than valuing the perspectives of people who practice the religion peacefully, It is very easy for readers who do not actually practice the religion to interpret the religion as a violent religion that has no tolerance for religions other than their own. Additionally, in relation to our specific real-life situation, the language that was used when describing the Paris attacks, because France is not considered a country that has a large Muslim population, it is not considered a Muslim, like a Middle Eastern country where most people who don't practice the Muslim religion immediately think to. The language used to describe France made it seem like the France attacks were much more important than the Lebanon attacks.
Emotion is another way of knowing we will be discussing. Emotion is related to this real-life situation due to the fact that emotion makes sense of different social, ethical, and political knowledge. Emotions work to help us understand the world around us. This is related to the real-life situation and the knowledge question due to the fact that the perspectives given were written to make readers feel a specific way. However, because there was for the most part only a large broadcast on the Paris attacks, the emotions that were given made the readers feel like the Paris attacks were more important than the attacks in Lebanon. So faith is another important aspect that we're going to be talking about, because faith is also another synonym for trust and can be controversial. And due to the fact that these events were spread through the media, people had to rely on the faith and the trust of other people to understand what was truly happening. So they had to use the media to get their own perspective of it, which of course was very limited since they weren't there, but they relied on their faith.
So history is another area of knowledge that we're going to be discussing that's related to our real life situation. It's very important for people to understand the difference between history and the past, because history itself is not necessarily the past, but instead the study of events that had occurred in the past. It's important to study history when considering a real life situation such as these, because history impacts the current events. Additionally, history is really important to consider when considering History is very important to remember when considering events such as bombings from an extremist group such as ISIS, because ISIS is in relation to other historical terrorist groups such as the Al-Qaeda group, which had terrorist attacks in various countries throughout history. In history, there were several different perspectives given when broadcasting on the terrorist group. However, the value placed on specific perspectives made it seem as if certain events are more important than others. And even furthermore off of that, the perspective placed from the American perspective or the perspective of someone who does not necessarily practice the Muslim religion was valued at a higher standard than the religion of those that practice the Muslim religion. And because of this value that was placed on the perspectives of others, the media made it seem as if the Muslim religion was a violent religion as a whole, when in reality it is actually a peaceful religion. And because of this, it impacts people's ability to absorb new knowledge because of the fact that they are given incorrect perspectives, which makes them believe something that is incorrect.
So another real life situation is the Sandy Hook shooting. These are different news articles talking about it. This news article is specifically discussing the events that occurred during the Sandy Hook shooting tragedy. And due to the fact that this event happened in 2012, this article is still discussing these articles are discussing how there is still an effect on the families and the victims of the people in the town, and there's still lingering emotions. And this relates to the knowledge question of whether or not shared knowledge has an influence. Due to the fact that the Sandy Hook shooting was advertised so greatly that there's a chance that there are different perspectives shared to the media, such as the fact that this Sandy Hook shooting was more important than other school shootings that have recently occurred and which were overshadowed by the Sandy Hook shooting. So the possibility that the perspective may not be as accurate can relate to the WOKs of emotion and faith.
So in conclusion, with our knowledge question being how do differing values placed on perspectives affect our knowledge, we came to the conclusion that these differing values placed on specific perspectives greatly affect our exposure to knowledge due to the fact that if a certain value is placed on one perspective rather than another, we are automatically or subconsciously believing that that perspective is more important and that that perspective is the only perspective. So it hinders our ability to absorb full knowledge, which makes it very difficult to understand what is truly going on, therefore affecting our exposure to knowledge.
Thank you.